poll shows a majority of Americans distrust President Biden on COVID. But one Washington Post columnist says it's time to stop focusing on the negative, writing, deduct style points from their score if you like, acknowledge the failures on issues such as immigration, but they swing for the fences and they get things done. Let's bring in tonight's Dream Team panel to debate that point. Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall, a syndicated radio talk show host, and Jason Chaffetz, former congressman and host of Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. Great to have you both back.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Shannon.
Okay, so this new poll talks about the distrust that people have when it comes to things like COVID and what the president has been saying on that. You gotta wonder, Jason, if it's an issue of mixed messaging. You know, the administration says they're trying to be very clear, but people somewhat seem confused.
That's because the commander-in-chief is fairly confused, is not a good communicator. He gets no support from Kamala Harris. And typically what they've done is they've introduced the policy and then they scramble to go find the science to support it. Instead of introducing the science, having the scientific community rally behind it, and then say this is why we believe this should be the policy. And I just don't think Joe Biden is believable on this. I think the way he, and particularly Kamala Harris, tried to negate the vaccine because Donald Trump helped develop it was a real negative. And then once they got it launched, I just think they've overstepped.
Well, Bill McGurn writes this in the Wall Street Journal opinion piece. He says the past few weeks have seen one Biden disaster after another, from the humiliating retreat from Afghanistan and the chaos at the southern border to rising inflation and the failure to get a grip on COVID-19. With each new crisis, he looks like a man not up for the job. Absent a growing economy, it will be all but impossible for him to put these other failures behind him. Leslie, how does he turn the polls around?
Well, first, nobody can predict how many times this virus is going to mutate. We have Delta variant, we have Mu variant, we have another variant I don't even know the name of. And when you look at this poll, Shannon, it's across the board. It's not just the president, it's House members, Senate members, governors, Democrats and Republicans that the public doesn't trust. And I think that's because, you know, we have a lot of negative news about COVID, and then we get positive news and we think we're going to be able to go back to our lives and things start to reopen. And then when you have these variants, it's really hard because we have to go back to putting on masks. There have to be restrictions.
Let me just interject real quick, and then I'll let you finish. But what about the border, Afghanistan, inflation, the drone strike? There's a lot there beyond COVID for this White House to deal with.
Yes, but if you're looking at elections, which is what all polls are pointing to, whether it's a midterm or a general, the midterm coming up sooner, obviously, than the general, Afghanistan is not top of mind for the voters. Immigration will be for those in border states. But another thing, again, with the media, we see Haitians under the bridge. We don't see the next day when the bridge is cleared and no more Haitians under the bridge, or a discussion, how did all those Haitians who were living for years happily in Brazil get on commercial flights all at the same time and end up in the same place? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that kind of seems funky to me.
Yeah, and we did, by the way, show it cleared out because it was pretty miraculous to us. Our reporters who were down there did see that. But to this issue about the border, former President Obama said to ABC, he said, we have borders. The idea that we can just have open borders is something that, as a practical matter, is unsustainable. So our Jackie Heinrich over at the White House asked Jen Psaki about that.
Does President Biden agree with President Obama that open borders is unsustainable?
We don't have open borders. So, yes, he agrees.
Jason, we do not have open borders.
I mean, that's just absolutely laughable. And Leslie, to your point, yes, there are more than 10,000 people under this bridge. Suddenly there's none. But then the news comes out that they released at least 12,000 people out into the homeland, just release them across the country. At the same time, the administration is trying to say, the border's closed? Are you kidding me? And then you put these vaccine mandates in place and tell people they have to wear a mask and they have to do testing. They can't even go to a restaurant in New York City unless they have identification that they got vaccinated. But all the people that are coming across the border, they don't get tested. They don't get the vaccine. This is the type of duplicity that everybody sees through,
Okay.
and why the poll numbers are plummeting.
I
for
want to
these
quickly
people.
get this in before we're out of time. To that point, tonight there's a whistleblower that's come forward. We now have a letter from 2 Republican congressmen to Secretary Mayorkas saying that CBP has told the Border Patrol agents they have to be fully vaccinated by November. This is what they're reporting, or face termination. They talk about how difficult it is to recruit and retain people right now to do this exceptionally difficult job. And Jason, as you mentioned, a lot of the people they're dealing with are let into the country without testing or vaccination. So, Leslie, how do we tell the Border Patrol now, you're fired if you don't do it?
I think everybody should be vaccinated unless they have some kind of medical condition that their physician says they shouldn't be vaccinated, and that includes people coming into the country. But to Jason's point, he likes to talk about 12 or 13,000 let in. He doesn't want to mention 79, 80,000 plus same day that are sent out and sent home. And those are the numbers, and they're not my numbers. At the end of the day, we have to make decisions, and the decisions aren't all coming from Joe Biden, and certainly not all coming from people in my party and Democrats. There are plenty of Republicans who are also starting to say, you've got to wear a mask or you've got to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
We're seeing that more and more, especially as these ICUs are filling up in some of these red states.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people agree vaccination is the way to go. People need to make these determinations, talk to their doctors, and as you say, if there's some exception, that's got to be discussed as well. But in the meantime, the Border Patrol agents know that a lot of people coming into this country are not going to be held to the same standard that they apparently are now, and that's a conversation we got to have. All right, Leslie and Jason, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shanna.